I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. We think too much and feel too little. Think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, to do away with greed. Now let us fight to free the world, to fulfill that promise. Let us all unite.
Welcome, folks, to the Corporation Nation radio program. I'm Clint, your host. It is the 24th of April, 2014. My special guest today, of course, is my regular Thursday guest, Burt from Colorado, or as we lovingly call him, Freeman Burt. Welcome to the show, Burt.
Thank you, sir, for having me once more.
Absolutely. So, we have Burt on here, and we're talking about, Burt constantly mentions, hey, yeah, I'm helping this dude out here, I'm helping this lady out here. It's not often that we actually get to talk to someone who's been through the process with Burt and has actually had some success with what Burt is helping people out to do. So today, we've invited Greg. Greg is going to keep some information to himself. We're not going to talk about which state he is in, but Greg contacted Burt some time ago, and they've been going through the process. I'm going to turn the show over to you, Burt. And have you basically talk about what you guys have been doing in this case, what the case was all about, and then I'll come in and ask questions if I feel like we need to clarify some things. So please introduce Greg and get going.
Hi there, Greg.
Hey, Burt. Wasn't sure if you wanted to take it from there.
I muted myself. Then I forgot to mute myself. I mute myself. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen of the Corporation Nation, here's Greg, a fellow patriot who basically has been researching this whole issue about being free for a while, and he just so happened that this information happened to come in kind of handy on a very critical day. And this situation involves, the typical exchange that we all are at risk of being involved in when we get into our four wheels and cruise on down the road. Because your chance of being molested, harassed, injured, or even being killed by a so-called police officer is pretty high. Now, I don't want anyone to get the idea that I am against police officers, because I'm definitely not, and Greg is definitely not. But we're definitely against police officers who violate their office and who abuse their power, and that goes for basically anyone who works for the so-called government, from the U.S. president all the way down to any administrative secretary. The abuse can happen anywhere in between. So I'm going to let Greg kind of fill you in on the basic details of what happened, and then we can take some calls if you don't mind, Greg, and I'll have people actually ask you the questions.
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't mind.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. Well, Clint, first of all, thanks for having me on, man. I'm really I'm excited to be able to tell the story and sort of get this information out there.
Oh, no, thank you.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
This all essentially began, at least in terms of my beginnings with Burt, this all began in the beginning of January. Actually, this was New Year's Day. So I'm actually a musician and a teacher in the particular state that I'm in. I finished a degree in psychology and music for whatever it's worth. And I was coming home actually from a gig. I play in a number of cover bands around town, so I was about an hour and a half away from my house or so. So this was a New Year's gig, and I was on my way home about 2 in the morning or so. And essentially, I pulled into a gas station about halfway home, and unbeknownst to me, there had been a police cruiser behind me for some distance. So I didn't see his lights actually come on until I was in the parking lot and pulling up to a pump. And essentially, this officer took about all of 8 seconds to exit his vehicle and approach my door. So I rolled my window down about an inch or so, and as he approached the vehicle, I said, "Sir," and he told me to roll my window down. And I said, "It's down, sir." And he told me again to roll my window down, and I said, "Again, sir, it is down." And he demanded my driver's license. What I told him was that I would rather not volunteer that information. And he obviously didn't like to hear that. So he demanded my driver's license specifically. I told him again, "Sir, I would rather not volunteer that information." So at this point, I angered him enough that he ripped my door open. So unfortunately, I did not have it locked. At this point, I'm not sure if that was I think it was for the best. We'll see. You guys be the judge of that. So he proceeds to again demand that I exit the vehicle. Well, first demands my driver's license again. I told him, "I'm sorry, sir, I cannot volunteer that information. I can show you my information, but I don't appreciate you being in my car." And he told me, he said, "Don't you move, don't you move." And then he proceeded to reach across my body, unbuckle my seatbelt, and then demand that I get out of the car. So at this point, I just kind of stopped responding to him. So he's starting to yell at me that I get out of the car, and he grabs my left arm and starts to pull. And so he yanks a couple of times. I'm a rather big guy, so I'm about 6'3", 6'4", like 240 pounds or so. So he's a bit smaller than me, so he had a little bit of difficulty pulling me out.
And a small guy complex.
Oh, to boot. So he pulls me out and sort of puts me belly first against the open door, like in the corner, sort of that's created between the door, and had enough time to radio for backup. I mean, he's trying to claim that I resisted him through this struggle. We'll get to that, but he was able to radio for backup at this time, and essentially sort of ripped me around backwards and kind of jumped on my back and tackled me to the ground while. And that's the thing. I mean, there's video of this. We've been able to review the video, so it seems because I'm in the middle of this. I only remember so much myself as I'm getting tackled to the ground. He kind of jumped on my back, and again, him being a little smaller than I had a hard time getting me down. So he kind of gave me a couple of fists to the back of the head, and so I finally, I'm on the ground. And he hits me again, so I'm by this time bleeding from my right eyebrow, and he's screaming at me to get on the ground. So, at this point, he tells me to put my hands behind my back, obviously, and handcuffs me. I'm trying to think of more to go from here. So he handcuffs me. He puts one of them on rather tight and proceeds essentially to pick me up and search my clothing and then search my vehicle. I asked him before he put me in the back of the cruiser if I could make arrangements to lock my vehicle or at least secure my property somehow, and he just ignored me. So he began a completely unconsented search of my property. And radioed for backup from the sheriff's department, and these guys showed up within the next 20 minutes or so.
Let me pause you there for a second. So I want people just to contemplate the situation and what you've heard so far. So, assuming this police officer is correct in his actions, and let's just look at it from that point of view. This means that when you go and purchase a driver's license, you are putting yourself at risk of not responding fast enough to a request to a driver's license. And therefore, you are putting yourself at risk of being pulled out of your private property, slammed into the concrete, having steel cuffs put on your hands so tight that your wrists swell up and cut you in the process. So the question is that what you were purchasing? Did you agree to purchase a driver's license so that you could be at risk of being brutalized and possibly being tased or possibly being killed or possibly being made retarded from someone hitting you on the back of the head?
Well, there's a lot of statists out there, so that might be a dangerous question. So we're going to go to a break. But, yeah, good point, Bert. I mean, that's not what I paid for. We'll be back.
First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here is that your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas. Believe that you can do it. Because you can do it. Relax, let it flow. Think like
all right, so you're at a gas station, you pull in, you're going to get gas. I'm going to assume, I'm going to ask, actually, did you or were you ever confronted with a question or demand or disclosure that you were being put under arrest, that you've done something wrong, that you violated a law, or that there was some cause for him to do what he was doing by the time you were pretty much unconscious on the gas station floor? That's the real question.
That is what is specifically absent from this entire interchange, was any forewarning at all. I mean,
so he was just a douche.
Yeah, I mean. To put it simply, Clint, yeah, in so many words.
I like simple.
Mm-hmm. Let's not euphemize. Yeah, the whole interchange, I believe, took about 52 seconds from the time he exited his vehicle to the time I was on the ground.
Well, then, you must not be that big of a guy. I mean, what a wimp. No, go ahead. Continue. Well...
So, Bert, I was going to ask Bert, I suppose, what aspect of this can we start to get into? It's a lot.
Well, let's go ahead and basically take it to the point where, where you got out of jail because you went to jail.
Yeah. So, all right. So this, I'm in the back of the cruiser for a good hour or so. Just about leading up to an hour. I think it was a good 50 minutes. I was able to make a call to my girlfriend, luckily, and she was very upset. Again, nothing like this ever happened to me, so this was just the biggest shock to everybody. They ended up processing me through this particular jail. And, so by this time, in the back of the cruiser, it's just lovely for them, because I'm in the back of the cruiser. It's essentially what we have now at this point, media-wise, is the CCTV footage from this gas station. We have the audio from the officer's person as well as the back of his car. And it's those are just one file, I guess. I'd still like to find out if they tampered with the audio. And then we have his dash video. So I was able to make a composite of all of these things. And essentially, I'm in the back of the cruiser at some point, every so often stopping and saying, "Gentlemen, please, officers, these cuffs are very tight. This one in particular, this is starting to slice my wrist." And again, this is on the audio. I mean, it's just the most... I want to emphasize that, and I'm sure we'll get the opportunity to do that for anyone listening to this and attempting to do anything like this. To maintain your cool, to maintain your rationale, and as obviously absurdly difficult as it could be in a situation like this, was just of utmost importance to me. Because I made them look like animals. I mean, I'm the most reasonable person. I was like, it's like he's pulling a sheep out of this. He had no precedent to do this whatsoever. So he had a very difficult time convincing anybody that I had done anything wrong. It turns out, in fact, we have two eyewitnesses that ended up seeing all this, and I've had a chance to talk to them. We're going to end up getting sworn affidavits from these two men, but they would swear up and down they didn't see anything on my part at all that looked like resistance.
Yes, and let me expand on what you just said. I mean, Greg just said he's a big guy. He could have taken the little guy very easily. So this has nothing to do about being a macho man or being anything along those lines. This is along the lines of being smarter than your opponent, okay? And being able to control yourself and thereby being able to control the situation. That is really important in dealing with these cops, because you do not know the mental status of these people that you are dealing with. This might be someone completely crazy, completely willing to see blood dripping from someone. So do not take it lightly. You need to be as calm and as smart as you can possibly be in a very volatile situation. You do not want to increase fuel to a potential fire. That is very important to keep in mind.
I'd say it's fairly easy as well. I've noticed this, that you can tell almost right away whether reason and logic is going to be your tool or is silence and basically compliance to forceful actions going to be too. Because once you see the psychopathic rage of some of these guys that they hire, and sometimes you can tell by the tattoos all the way up and down their arms and coming out their shirt, into their face, because that's who they're hiring nowadays. Or, like one of my encounters was with a guy that I talked to him as a normal human being. He was a former school teacher. I asked him if he knew what certain words meant, and he didn't, and he was pleased to learn that he was actually not doing things right, if you can believe that. So, you can really tell right away, I think, especially in a case like this, what you're dealing with, and you should really... You shouldn't, because logic, when you try to talk to these people and you try to quote them their own laws even, they're going to get really mad. And you can tell which ones are like that. So please continue, sir.
Well, yeah, it's so again, really, that's, I think, too, there's this beautiful point in the video where they radio my information in, and they get the dispatch back that there's nothing wrong with my information whatsoever. My plates are up to date. I do have a valid driver's license. There's this great moment where he's standing there with the open door. I'm in the back. I'm in the back of the cruiser, still handcuffed, and he's sitting there with 3 other deputies. And when they finally radio back that there's no warrants or anything out for me, the main guy looks around at the 3 of them, and just kind of, you could see the disbelief. I think I was like a breed that they didn't understand. Like he asked me at some point, this is on tape, he asked me, among other things, he says, "You see that on YouTube, man?" Like, he's like, "You see all the videos of cops getting killed out there?" And that's the thing, man. I'm in the back of their car like, "Officer, I absolutely understand. I know you men have a dangerous job, and really this is a matter of me respecting your work as much as myself asserting my own rights. And that's really a matter of what this was." I mean, again, so I didn't have any ill words to share with this guy. This is a dude, he beat me to the ground, and he says, "How'd you like that, Stoner?" What did he say? Was that worth it? Did you like that? So obviously, I mean, this is an enraging situation. But man, I don't know. Even in that moment, I had to try to see down the road, and luckily I did.
Yeah, he was trying to teach you a lesson.
Yeah. Well.
Yes, sir. May I have another?
And I'll tell you, man, throwing around sirs and ma'ams. That gets you a lot further than you would imagine. That's been a big friend to me in this entire ordeal, because I've had to deal with the courts a number of times. Again, I'm sure we'll get into this more. Looking nice every time I showed up. I mean, this is my enemy seeing me, come into battle more or less. I had to show up to the courthouse a number of times to turn things in, pick things up. I always wanted them to see me well dressed. I did not want them to take me in any, to any degree less seriously than I was willing for them to take me.
Yeah, in fact, they often confuse you as an attorney, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, many times. So Burt, again, I guess from here I could talk a little bit about the jail experience. I was in for about 12 hours, and it was obviously just ridiculous experience. They processed me. It was kind of fascinating, actually. I was asking tons of questions the entire time just about what's going on right now, and they have new digital fingerprint machines and all this stuff that they've been provided, I'm sure, by Homeland Security. And so I'm just asking questions about everything, and they're processing me. So I was able to have I had first appearance the next morning in front of a judge in shackles, in my orange jumpsuit. And so this is where I go in front of the magistrate, and he essentially reads me the, quote, rights associated with my case. And there's a number of us in terms of the inmates for this particular night. So he goes through county by county. And they finally get to me, so this is over video conference. And he asks me if I understand my charges. So it ran through my mind at this moment. I realized he's asking me something about my understanding in terms of my agreeance, my acquiescence to these understandings, to these charges.
Right.
And,
hey, hold that thought, man. We got to go to a break.
Awesome.
We'll be back. Stay tuned, folks. And, of course, we're talking, as we often do, about the executive force that creates the corporation nation, because without force, heck, what would those slimy politicians and judges have? Absolutely nothing. No authority, no power, no nothing. So you have to have the executive force. So that's what we're talking about today. In this case, the municipal police. Were these city police, county police, state police?
Yeah, this was the city police.
City police. What we have here is obviously a blatant case of just abuse of power, really nothing else. And I kind of cut out there the last hour. Was there a point where you were accused of something, or there was charges filed against you?
Yes. I didn't find this out until I had first appearance essentially after I was processed through the jail. So I spent about 12 hours in jail. That's where we left off. And I had the opportunity to go in front of a magistrate for first appearance. So this is an interesting interchange, and this is a particular, especially in terms of somebody going in front of a judge for the first time. So this is I'm in shackles, and there's an armed officer right near me. So they had me on video conference with a magistrate who essentially read me the quote unquote rights associated with my case and asked me if I understood. So me essentially being under duress entirely, obviously I'm handcuffed and there's an armed dude right there. I wasn't about to try to piss these guys off anymore, because I'm fully aware at this point I could have tried to tell the magistrate, no, I do not understand. I mean, there's a number, and he's asking me about my acquiescence to these charges. So it's fascinating, because I think I might have had the opportunity at this point to ask for my release. I could have asked to be released on recognizance, tell him, like, sir, I'm an honorable man, I will be able to handle this, and I asked to be released on my own recognizance. None of that happened, so I had to tell him, yes, I understand these charges, and yes, I will get my own attorney, and that was essentially that interchange. So they put me on a bond for, the charges were resisting an officer with violence and battery on a law enforcement officer. So those, obviously laughable. It's funny, the two fellas that witnessed all of this, they were looking in the paper throughout the next week to try to figure out what the hell happened, and they both told me too, when they read that it was resisting arrest, they just could not believe. Can you imagine them arresting this guy for resisting arrest? It's resisting an officer, so it's fascinating, because I think ultimately the statute comes down to whether or not you've even acquiesced to a lawful demand. So it isn't even that, he's trying to say I physically resist with violence, of course, but it's just them trying to cover their butts, man.
Sure. All right, so you went through the preliminary, you finally found out what you were being charged with. So the whole time you're sitting there, you don't know what the heck you're doing there.
Right.
And, of course, you probably know. Now, have you been listening to and studying all this stuff?
Yeah, to some extent. In fact, I'm pretty sure I had Burt, I'm pretty sure you were on a CD in my car at the time. Well, not my car. Man, I hate these words. My car, my vehicle. I think I can call it my conveyance, but I'm not even sure if that's possible to.
It's your property.
These words, man. These property. Yes, my property. But yes, I'm fairly certain I had a CD of Burt on Gnostic Media actually in my CD in my property as they towed it away. But in fact, one of the other interesting things about this is on the back of my property, I have a very explicit sign that says "Not for hire, private property." And I did this about a year ago, actually. Hoping to, and at that time I had removed my license plate, and I was looking toward forfeiting my driver's license, which I'm actually hoping to do again. I wouldn't mind flexing my freedom muscles a little bit more after this entire interchange. So that was kind of an interesting facet of it. We were actually able to bring that up, that I was trying to explicitly state on my vehicle, or on my property, that this is not a vehicle. This is not a machine being used for any sort of commercial enterprise.
So to be clear, you did not have a license plate per se on the vehicle. You had a sort of a homemade plate, private property, not
no.
For,
actually, this
not for
I
sale?
did happen to have a state plate on it at this time. So
okay.
There's a little bit of a contradiction, and I can get into exactly why. But regardless, that sign is still there because I frankly believe that they should have to prove when I'm acting in commerce. So whether or not I have this tag, this tax tag on my vehicle, I think is a moot point. But whatever, that might be a conversation for another time.
Yeah. So just let me highlight a couple of points because Clint just brought it up. The license plate, in fact, is nothing more than a tax receipt. Okay, without going into all the explanation of what it is. But that's really what it is. It's a tax receipt. And people need to do this one little research, okay? In whatever particular state you happen to be, try to research what the meaning of driving privilege is. You may be surprised to find out that it's not defined. Okay, in this particular situation, we found that driving privilege is not defined. Now, a driver's license, no one is technically required to have one. Okay? So for a cop to demand a driver's license from you, it's kind of crazy, because you may not have one. And what if you don't have it on your person? You know, there's a lot of issues that go with it, but it's really important for people to research what driving privilege is, because you hear this on the news all the time. Those, you know, mouthpieces for the state always are talking about, well, you know, driving privilege is not a right, it's a privilege, you know, and all this kind of stuff that they mix with words. But in fact, it's not defined. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a pretty sticky terminology when you really start to look at exactly what what transportation is. That was one that really got me recently. The word transportation specifically means that you are in commerce. You were being employed, that there is a contract. Blows me away. Anyway, so I suppose I can skip ahead to where I get home from this. I was finally bailed out of jail. You know, a good 12 hours after this whole deal.
What was? May I ask what the bail was?
Please. Yeah, it was. They set. You know, so I have to post 10%. So they posted, I think, 25,000 for each of these. So, no, I'm sorry, 2,500. I'm sorry, because I had to post $500. So 10% of it. So the two charges each were $2,500. So a total of 5,000.
So just to be clear to people, the reason that they do this, and I don't know if a lot of people actually realize this or not, but when you create a $5,000 worth of a financial instrument, the money is basically created at that point and put into an investment fund. We call it the Court Registry Investment System. You can look that up, CRIS. So the point of doing all of these charges, and the reason they give you such high fines and then lower them later, is simply because they want to put as much money as possible into the investment scheme. Again, Court Registry System, you can actually find that in U.S. Code. You can also find it... you can find reports where they assign CUSIP numbers. By the way, did you notice whether you were assigned a CUSIP number?
No, I can't say
you should ask. You should find out and let me know, because that's basically the Securities and Exchange number that goes on all securities. And whenever you're arrested, you're basically assigned as a human commodity, a security. So that's the reason, just so you know, that they're doing that. And they make you post 10%. They could make you do anything they want. The whole point is to get the money in the system. So,
I believe I give 10% to the bondsman too, I think. So
right,
they're in on the.
So they're in the middleman, basically.
Yeah. So, you know, I get home and I obviously my entire family's trying to encourage me to get an attorney, because I found I was studying pre-med, you know, so this is a felony on my record is obviously a terrible thing. So there was no shortage of anyone telling me that. And everyone's encouraging me to get an attorney to try to get this thing dropped to a misdemeanor. I even have an attorney friend who's a guitar player in one of the bands I'm in. I ended up talking to him about it. His input throughout this thing has been fascinating. He's a criminal defense lawyer now for 14 or 15 years. And he's been rather surprised, I think. He doesn't want to admit it. You know, Burt has heard some of these conversations. Again, we can get into that. So, at some point or another, though, I thought to myself, obviously, I've been hearing this guy, Freeman Burt. I think about a day after this event, I just decided to email him. I even told you, I think, Burt, in that first email, I was like, I think maybe eventually we could make a podcast out of this. I hope that this is something that might be able to help other people eventually, because this really seems like a pretty ridiculous case.
It's pretty basic, actually, when compared to what most people could find themselves in.
Yeah,
it's pretty typical.
Yeah, it would seem so. I got lucky in a number of ways, I think. So anyway, I emailed Burt. I kind of gave him a synopsis of what happened, and he pretty clearly said, you were definitely assaulted. Go ahead and get a hold of me at some point. We can kind of talk over the details. And so I think from there, We essentially, Burt, is there anything you can add at this point, you feel like?
Well, so anyway, so at this point you decided to contact me because you were afraid to go with an attorney. What was the biggest fear that you had of going with an attorney?
My family's had experience with attorneys. I've had a divorce in my childhood. My father's a surgeon. He's had a number of problems to deal, in terms of dealing with attorneys on a number of occasions. And I've known just from my experience with them. You first of all, obviously you're never able to discuss anything really with them. I don't know how seriously they actually take any of your input. But I obviously wanted somebody. I wanted to learn from this more than anything. And I did not think an attorney could do that for me.
Scientists have been battling to understand what this unappealing object is all about. What the object is all about.
Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems in the form of energy.
Here in the Corporation Nation.
And then it explodes into this.
And, hey, bud, what exactly was it that you were pulled over for? You said the cop was actually pulling behind you for some time. You didn't know it, and it didn't sound like he had time to really tell you why he had actually pulled you over. He just asked you for a license, basically. Well, he asked you to pull down the window and then license, and that was it. So what was the actual charge that he was actually pulling you over? It couldn't have been resisting arrest, obviously, because you hadn't had time to do that.
Right. I would emphasize that he did not pull me over. That I was heading into the gas station. I just happened to notice that he was behind me. So I didn't react to anything that he initiated. But he told me, I think this was some half an hour later. I'm in the back of the car. He's trying to explain to me a little bit. You can hear him fumbling through his words too in the audio. It's pretty fascinating. That my tailgate was down and he couldn't see my tag, and that I was speeding. He said, I pulled you over for your speed and couldn't see your tag, something to that effect. And when I got when I was finally let out of the jail cell, they gave me a couple of citations, one for speeding and one for an obstructed tag. So that that was.
Did you sign them?
I think at that time they had me sign only. They had me sign a number of things about them hanging onto my property. So what ended up happening with the citations, actually, at the advice of Burt, these citations were actually paid as extortion payments. So I actually had the clerk at the bank type this into, onto the check, and I had to handwrite a bit of it as well. But I essentially said that this was an extortion payment.
But why did we decide to do that?
We did this, first of all, because there's this 30-day limit on the citation. So we didn't want to have to fight two fronts, essentially. This is more or less choosing our battles. Because I didn't want to pay it. My initial reaction was, obviously, this is unprecedented. I'm not going to do anything, to even acknowledge this. But Burt made the point to me that, essentially that you don't have to fight further battles than you need to. Obviously, the big problem here are these felony charges. So if I was able to take the hit and just pay these for now, this will probably be something we'll end up recouping. So as much as I hated to bite the bullet and pay it, made a lot of sense, I think, in the long run. I see the big picture now. Burt and I were talking about that a little earlier. You can kind of see now that we'll have this on record now if we ever, and we will be going forward with, prosecuting and actually filing a tort against, I believe, the city, the state, and this particular individual. So it helps in the long run. So it was essentially the money order said that it was an extortion payment that I was paying out of fear of my life from this particular officer, and that it was related to this particular case. So those are on record. They cashed them. I have copies of them.
That is your right. Just so you know, it is your right to be extorted from.
Oh, indeed. A privilege, indeed.
Yes, quite. Okay, so you're out of jail. You've paid your tickets. Did we go back to trial? I mean, have we gone through trial? I didn't really catch the details of the case before the show. So
okay, well, there was the first appearance was them. I'm in shackles, still in jail, and they read me my whatever the rights associated with this case, and they set my bond, etc. At that point, they had not filed the quote information needed to actually go forward with the charges. This is an open case. These charges were standing there. But the DA had not filed the actual information yet.
Yeah, no indictment.
No indictment, right. So this was, I think they didn't do that until about the end of January, I believe. So it took them a good 20 or 30 days. During that time, Burt and I were working on this beautiful little document called a demurrer, which I learned quite a lot about, and is essentially, if I can do my best in explaining it, is essentially a pretrial motion and is a document that challenges probable cause. So it's supposed to trigger specifically a hearing about probable cause. It's more or less my addressing the alleged charges against me with a kind of a so what. And if this is what you're claiming, I'm not going to argue that these are the alleged facts, but is there enough to go on here to actually have a case lawfully? Do you have even law that covers what happened?
So, in other words, it's not so much of a so what, it's more of a WTF kind of thing?
Yeah. In a way. And that's what you're really asking them, is to even prove to me that there is even a case for me to defend myself upon. Very specific, because this is one of the documents that many attorneys have had they have had no idea,
no experience with whatsoever. Well, because they go on billable hours, so they're not going to want to go. They want to go to trial, to hearings. I mean, they don't want to say, well, yeah. So I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah. From that perspective, indeed, I guess. So this demurrer, I think, was about 8 or 9 pages long. There's a number of case law outlined, and I think Burt found a good 8 or 9 cases referring to a lot of what happened to me. It was really an excellent document. We got to lay down quite a lot of the notion of the driving privilege in there, and the fact that I had the sign on my property, and that the fact that driving privilege had not been defined, I was within my right to define it, and I defined it specifically as a commercial enterprise, and one in which I was not partaking at the time. So this we filed once before the proper information was filed by the prosecution. So this was my very first foray into dealing with the court and a court clerk and having to enter anything into the record. So Burt sent me the document, read over it, I loved it. So I had to print this thing out and get it certified mailed to a number of individuals, including, I believe, who's in Tallahassee, Burt? Who's at the Capitol? Is that
the Attorney General for the state?
Yes, the Attorney General. Thank you. And including, and we were trying to serve this cop too, to try to figure out if we can see where he lives, or confirm at least that we can serve whatever we need to him. Anyway, so we end up getting this thing filed, which just blew me away. So I'm checking the court docket throughout this entire experience. I've religiously checked the court docket, and when I saw this demurrer, I saw demurrer and notice pop up on the docket. I lost it, man. That was the coolest thing. So they actually stamped the thing. They sent me a copy back that said it was recorded. I sent them 2 copies. I sent the court clerk 2 copies, one of which I needed back stamped that it had been filed. So they did indeed do that. The next day, however, I saw on the docket that there was an order from the judge, and I think it said on the docket specifically it was an order to dismiss this demurrer. So I got a little shaky, and I talked to Burt about it. And Burt maintains his cool throughout all of this, I have to say. He was not shaken by this at all. I hadn't realized what it meant at first, but I finally got the actual order. I got a copy of the order from the judge's office in my P.O. box, and it mentioned only that they had dismissed it because it was premature, because the information had not been filed. So we actually filed the paperwork before the DA was even had a chance to get around to anything. Which, I know the man's working with a lot of stuff. I really want to emphasize that aside from this particular officer, and as cordial as I was to him, even, everyone throughout this process was very honorable. I mean, I cannot speak ill of anybody really involved in this entire process. Even I got to share the floor eventually with the prosecutor. It's pretty neat. I mean, I found some respect, a different type of respect for what these men do. It
felt good, right? It felt like you were empowered because you actually had the right information, and that's such a rarity for most people.
Oh, and I tell you, man, they treat you as such. Burt mentioned this a number of times, that they had to eventually treat me as though I was another attorney. They had to respond to me. Yeah, man. And again, I was in no way, shape, or form trying to be anything other than respectful to them.
Well, they say that people respect the person that has the bigger guns. That's as simple as that. You had the bigger pen, my friend. You had the law on your side, and they, as soon as they recognize that, you're like carrying a Gatling gun compared to their 22s. You know, that's what it is.
Well, after he left the courtroom, he had a bigger pair than everybody else.
Oh yeah, so now he's
ongoing joke.
Now he's going to be cocky. Is that what we're saying?
Well, we have an ongoing joke that now that the case is completely over with, now he needs a front loader to help him walk around.
Oh man, nice. Well, I'm glad to. You know, that's the part I'm most happy to hear is when someone tells me they have confidence, and I would refer again. You know, that's part of the Jesus approach. The Jesus approach is everything that the story of Jesus had to do with was confidence. The man had utter and complete confidence in his correctness, both in the law and in everything else. And when you figure out that that's the most important thing that these people respect, they'll be like, why is this guy so darn confident? Yeah. It's like he knows something about, well, usually we have sheep. Usually it's just sheep in here. Oh, yeah, very scary. All right, man. Well, when we get back, I'm going to have Burt explain a little more about the demure process, what was actually written in that thing, and the real logic behind this. But I'm just happy that Burt's out there able to do this for people, and this is why I have him on the show, folks. If you're in trouble, you know, you can call many people. You don't have to just call Burt, but I recommend it.
Burt sees you as a free man.
Absolutely. We'll be back, folks. Long break. Stay tuned.
Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel. Who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men. Machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. Let us use that power to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite.
Welcome back, folks, to Corporation Nation. I'm Clint, your host. Today with me are, Burt from OnlyFreemen.com. If you want to contact Burt, his contact information is there. What's your email as well, Burt?
You can contact me at Burt, B-U-R-T, at OnlyFreemen.com.
All right, very nice. And let's see. I'm trying to look.
I'm going to explain a little more about the demure.
Well, yeah. I was going to say, I think the best thing to do before we get to the conclusion of this, 2 questions before we go on here. First of all, have you two ever met in person?
No.
And so, to be clear, you hired, quote unquote, if you will, Burt, not as an attorney, because that would be an insult, but you actually hired him to help you stand up for your own rights and act as your own. What's the word, Burt? To act. I can't remember.
Sui juris.
Sui juris. And so you stood up in court. You were acting, basically playing along with the other actors, but you were acting as yourself. I like that. All right, so Burt, tell us just real quick some of the highlights of the demure, why you chose to do that particular process, and what the final result was.
Yeah, well, basically the whole idea, like Greg correctly said, the whole idea of the demurrer is to basically cause everything to freeze, to cause everything to come to a quick screeching halt. Because if you follow the advice of most attorneys, which is for you to enter a plea of not guilty, what you have done is made your opponent's job about 90% easier. Because now they don't have to present probable cause. It is assumed. Because as soon as you enter a plea, it means that you're ready to defend. And as soon as you're ready to defend, it means that there is, in fact, something for you to defend.
So you've actually agreed, no matter what you plea, as we've talked about before, no matter what you plea, you've agreed that you've grievously violated the law, basically.
Well, it means that there is at least something there that is legitimate. That's what you're saying when you enter a plea. You're saying, oh, yeah, Your Honor, I don't know what they have, I have no clue, but it's good. That's why I'm pleading, and I'm ready to go to trial because I know it's that good. That's what you're saying when you enter a plea.
It's delicious. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, so we enter this demurrer so that we can then have a hearing. And here's the cool thing about demurring the other side or demanding a probable cause hearing. You then take that whole case or potential case out of criminal and you put it into civil, which is a different set of rules. And in this new hearing that you would expect to get when you challenge probable cause, you win by preponderance of the evidence. So he who shows up with the biggest wheelbarrow full of evidence is going to win. So prior to Greg going to his first and only open court hearing, we prepared this demurrer, which begins from the table of context with the Hebrew Bible, Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5, and then ends with 9 cases that support every point that we're talking about, and then of course it has the grounds for demurrer. And within the contents here, we bring up all the crucial points of their law, beginning with the preamble to their Constitution and the oath of office that they take. And we say, we're going to accept. We don't even need a copy of your oath of office. We're going to accept and pretend that you in fact have one and that you abided by the statute that says, here's the oath. And we quote the oath. And then we quote the statutes that legitimize our demurrer. And then we proceed to add all these court cases that back up every single point of what we're saying. Now the one thing that Greg kind of found interesting about this demurrer is that there's very little narration on the part of the writer, huh, Greg?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is all law.
Yeah, this is all their wordings from the justices, or from the statute.
So in other words, you don't have to waste time declaring what should be and how things should be and what's right and wrong. You just need to quote them their own darn laws.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's basically all we did. And anyone who reads this demurrer has to walk away with the conclusion that we're basically at least on the right track. So anyway, Greg, go ahead and tell us what happened on your first and only court hearing.
Well, they called me in for an arraignment. They finally filed the information in late January, and they set a date for March. Somewhere 20.
Yeah, so you don't have to give the exact.
Yeah, all right, whatever. Yeah. And essentially, I went in there obviously quite nervous. First time I've done anything like it. So Burt and I, I take a lot of notes when Burt and I talk. That's been pretty important for me to kind of just keep up with all the information. So I sort of had kind of a cheat sheet in a way in front of me for a number of situations, just in case anything went wrong. And I kept telling myself the entire time, the one thing I want to make sure is that I'm just professional and that I'm cordial. I'm not here to piss anybody off. Essentially get there.
Let me pause you for a second. Before you went to court, what was your plan? What was your goal?
Our purpose in this arraignment was to establish a date for a probable cause hearing in order to address this demurrer because the prosecution had not yet responded to it.
Yeah,
that was the one thing. Yeah.
And you were gonna stick to that, hell or high water, right?
Yeah. That was my stated goal. So there were a number of other cases being heard in this particular day. He finally gets around to mine, and the DA spends about a minute sort of professionally lambasting me in a way and saying, this guy's had I'm paraphrasing. He's had a lot of contact with the state attorney's office, and it appears that he's filed some paperwork that's civil in nature but not in accordance with the rules of criminal procedure. And I've tried to encourage him to get representation, that we can provide representation, etc. So this is as I'm walking up to the podium. The judge doesn't really address anything. The DA said he wanted to address with me that I knew that I was not being represented, that I was not going to take representation. I told him, Your Honor, I do comprehend these things. And then my stated purpose, I said, I am here on special appearance to establish a date for a probable cause hearing in order to address the demurrer that I filed.
Beautiful.
That the prosecution has not yet responded to.
Elegant, simple, no emotion, no nothing, just pure fact.
That's it. And, dude, the judge didn't bat an eyelash. Said, okay. And he again wanted to assert that I didn't have representation, but that he set a tracking hearing, and he said, okay, we'll just we'll check back on this in about a month. And
all right. We'll come to the conclusion here. If you want to call into the show, please feel free. I'll give you the number after the break. Stay tuned.
Is this real? Or is this just right? The world is like a ride. You think it's real? It's a ride. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. The world is like a ride. You think it's real? It's a ride. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. Life goes up and down, round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored.
Okay, folks. We're back. We have approached the end of the case. Now, I'm curious what the end is actually going to be, because, as we've discussed before, a lot of times there's really no winning. The concept of winning and losing is not really what it's all about. I mean, we want to get the case basically thrown out for purposes like we're talking about. That's not necessarily a win. Now, the win, if you want to call it that, or the gain, would be from the after effects of that, where the case was thrown out. Obviously, some wrongdoing was done. Now we're going to sue the heck out of you, and I'm going to sue you not as a police officer, but as a man, and that kind of thing. So, what finally happened? Now, you've obviously had a lot of confidence, like I said. I also wanted to ask Burt, particularly why you invoked scripture in the actual demurrer. So you guys go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Greg. I'll let you finish it up.
Well, so this arraignment ended very well. Like I said, the judge is very professional. He didn't give me any flack. I didn't try to give him any flack. He did not bat an eyelash at my request for a probable cause hearing. So he set up a tracking hearing to just make sure that we checked on it in about a month. And he also he wanted to get my P.O. box address, or he wanted to be able to contact me to send what ended up being a waiver. They were trying to get me to sign, I think, something that was ultimately my acquiescence to not having representation. So, Burt and I talked this over. He ultimately told me, just hang on to it, bring it to the next hearing, don't really worry about it. So I did. And we spent about the next month or so collecting information on this particular officer. We found quite a lot of stuff, actually. It was been quite a journey. I'm still in the process of collecting more. And
so you're acting as your own private investigator too. Good.
Yes, sir. I've been calling around, and that's sort of the thing. I'm sure that scares the hell out of them. I've been calling up over there again, not to be a rabble rouser, but to ask for information that is publicly available and to make my presence known, to make them well aware that I am in the process of, I was in the process of discovery.
Yeah.
And so Essentially, like I said, I check the docket religiously, so I check every night, and it just so happened that one night they had put on the docket a null prosecutee. The prosecution filed what is essentially the cessation of pursuance. So they're no longer going to pursue the charges.
Which means, holy crap, we're going to lose.
Yes.
Let's let this go.
Yes.
And did you have to follow up on that?
I wrote the prosecutor and I thanked him for his respectful correspondence, and he gave me his best wishes. That was it.
All right. Well, very nice. So just to be clear, now the case, technically that whole shenanigan, that whole case is gone. Now, do you still have something on your record? I guess would be the thing to ask.
Not to my knowledge. I am upset at the fact that there's a mug shot of me out there and that my fingerprints are on record now. So we'll be, I'm sure we'll be taking care of that to some degree. But,
well, that is, again, that's also part of the point of all these stops and everything, is to get people into the system like that. Get your thumbprints, get all that stuff. Did they try any biometric stuff on you?
In terms of what? Like eye scanning and
anything, yeah,
that sort of thing. Well, their fingerprint scanners are pretty advanced these days. I mean, it's a
so it wasn't ink.
Oh no, it's some glass type.
Oh, that's biometric.
There you go, buddy.
All right, so Burt, what was the purpose? I mean, I understand, but just for the audience's sake, what was the purpose of your invoking those particular verses in Scripture, and why Scripture at all?
Well, it's because in reality, all this law is founded on those basic principles of law. So we wanted to get it into the record so that at any point we could then have the luxury of challenging the validity of their law if it appeared to be in contradiction to the biblical law.
So really all you're saying is that you introduced the maxims of law that any judge would be acknowledging in the first place.
Yeah.
Utilizing in the case.
Yeah. So we're just laying foundation. See, the key to dealing in all of these cases is you have to lay foundation. Now, we cannot say 100% why the prosecutor decided to drop the case. But one thing that we can definitely say is that if we had gone to sleep on the case, it may not have ended up where it did. We were extremely active. We were doing a lot of work behind the scenes that they were very aware of.
Right, and you didn't keep that a secret. You let them know, hey, I'm coming after you if you pursue this.
Yeah, we're turning stones. We're looking under the bed. We're looking in the closet. We're looking everywhere to get all and any possible information that we can use for this matter.
Well, Greg, how do you feel?
That's a hard thing to articulate. The word elated, man, elated. That's a great word for it.
As long as you don't say you want to go to Disneyland.
Well, except that now he has to walk like a cowboy, if you know what I mean.
That's right. I had to rent another wheelbarrow.
Hey, stop it! This is a respectable radio station.
Sorry, it's implication. It's implication. I'm trying to be sophisticated in my disgustingness.
But you feel empowered, right? I mean, it's such a good feeling when you can. I don't want to say talk down to, but make these people realize that they are your servants, not the other way around.
And in a way, I feel more responsible. I feel like this is, and in that word in itself, meaning the ability to respond. I feel like I have a much better notion of exactly kind of to how to deal with these situations. Still more to learn, always.
I think you ought to write a song about it.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, maybe you could.
Maybe you should invite that little police officer guy out for coffee and just talk to him and say, hey, man,
that's the thing, man. I'm sure
he is going to be talking to him because we're going to depose him.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be I was going to take some calls after the break, but I was going to ask what your plans are. I don't know if you want to talk about your plans, but
we don't want to compromise anything, but I'm not done with this by a long shot.
I hope not.
I was harmed in a very real, natural law violating kind of a way, and I do intend to get reparations.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. 1-800-313-9443 is the number. 800-313-9443. We do have some calls, so let's, unless, Bert, you have something else.
No, we could take a call.
All right. We'll probably have to hold you over to the next break. Bill in Idaho, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so very much. This is a second in a series of either assaults and or attempts at murder, I would allege. 68-year-old white male, 0 criminal record, and that would be by their own search. I was swept into this situation a second time, February of this last year, 8 o'clock at night, while walking home after attempting to have gotten a recommendation letter for a couple of officers that acted as gentlemen of the court, officers of the court, and yet at the same time had been inveigled into a situation by false accusation. And needless to say, the pre-trial conference, and I would mention I was in jail for 24 hours, no criminal charges in my history whatsoever. I was in jail. Hello?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll hold you over the break, and I'm sure you got a question, and sounds like the same kind of case, so stay tuned, folks.
Wake up and look around you. We're lost in space and the earth is your home.
Hi, neighbor. Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Maybe if I press this button. There are so many things to learn about in this world, and so many people who can help us learn, and so many people Did you ever throw anything in the garden?
OnlyFreemen.com is the website for our guest today, Burt, with one of his folks that he has helped and succeeded in a glorious way, Greg, from the unknown state of the Union. At least we'd like to think so. So Bill is our caller. Bill, did you have it sounds like you have a similar type of thing where you're basically just being harassed for absolutely no reason, not charged with anything, thrown in jail, and then expected to show up for trial. Now, do you have a question for Burt?
Well, the presumed pre-trial conference, I believe I was inveigled into and coerced into a trial. Judge actually had the gall to ask me how I pleaded. I told him I didn't wish to plead, and that if anything, it was innocent. The public pretender, which I made very clear was being forced upon me and that I did not wish to have, was gaulish enough to not appear and sent in a second who basically inveigled me in front of a court and then ultimately says that they want to make a motion to suppress, which I assume is attempting to destroy all the evidence, because as I was being grabbed by the police from behind, I announced that they were assaulting me and an elder abuse, if not being bullied. And finally, while attempting not to end up on 8-degree ice, black ice in the middle of the street for the whole neighborhood to see. And this is a follow-on of what happened when...
okay, so where's Bill? Where's the case now? Were you found guilty or what?
No, I am presently getting ready to go in, supposedly, on this motion to suppress with a public pretender's office that has provided no discovery whatsoever. I have
okay, so you need to try to see if they'll still allow you to challenge probable cause. Tell them you have not waived your right to challenge probable cause and see what happens, and then call me.
If I could have you get with the board, I've left my number. I'd appreciate further follow-on. I'll let you go. I know you're busy.
Okay,
thank you very much. Yes.
All right. We will go to Robert in Missouri. Robert, welcome to the show.
Well, man, this is overwhelming. I would just like to say kudos to you guys. And, Bert, I done put your citing my favorites. I'm relatively new to this whole enlightenment about, going back to the Organic Acts and the 14th Amendment and, turning us into this second-class citizen or whatever it is under the 14th Amendment. I bought From Sovereign to Serf by Roger Sales. I've read it. And, Clint, I heard you on Deanna's program, and that's how I kind of got hip to you, but I usually work at night. And just let me say this. I've been working in the correctional, let's just say, industry for like 18 years, and I've just really unplugged from the this false second system that they've inserted, by stealth onto all of us in the United States, and it's a real trip. And there's some things going on in the state of Missouri where I'm from that, there's some court systems out here that are just, they don't even care about the rules. They're their own rules.
Would you call what you've experienced, I don't know how much you want to say if you're in the industry, but would you call what you've experienced being in the corrections, if you want to call it a, I don't know what you call it. Would you call it human trafficking, is my question.
It seems that this is, when you look at the numbers with China, where the United States of America has more people incarcerated than a communist regime with 3 times the population, there's something wrong with this picture. And, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of bad people, pedophiles, you name it. There's all kinds of people that, probably deserve a lot worse than they're getting right now. But at the same time, there's a lot of people caught in this, let's just say, the nefarious side of the house, the drug laws, the, that sort of thing.
Do you deal with prisoners actually working, making products and stuff as well?
No, I used to. See, I've worked in like all facets of this game. I've worked at 3 different facilities. Right now, I'm at a county.
You're still working in this field?
Yes, I am. And, my conscience.
Contact me, okay? Because I'd like to talk to you.
Go ahead. But I'm gonna get in contact with you, Bert, and I'll probably send you an email too, Clint, because, I've always known, like over 20 years since Waco, Ruby Ridge, the nuttiness of the federal system and how it's been just totally hijacked by this oligarchy. But, going down to the state, county, municipal level, and then, Clint, I heard you talking about our pension funds and where it's locked up and just the total sickness and corruption at all levels. It's just,
sure. Pensioners are the main investor in the public-private prison industry.
Yeah, well, even in, these pension funds are locked up in Monsanto, which is poisoning us with GMO. It's
craziness. It's craziness. You've experienced it firsthand. You'd be, I don't want you to really say any more on air, but it sounds like you'd be a good connection for some inside information maybe with Burt. So definitely get in contact, my friend. Did you have any other questions or anything?
I want to say this, the way what I've witnessed about the setting of bonds, it's absolutely, positively sick. A kid will get caught with like one Xanax or a Vicodin, then they'll set this guy's bond at $10,000 and things of this nature. This is how out of control the entire system is. Well, and so I heard you guys talking, and I'm just like, man, I got to get in contact with you guys. But that's just pure profit. The more you can create as a financial instrument, everything is a financial instrument. It can be traded. It's a future labor. It's future payment. All that kind of stuff. So that's why they do that, and it is sick, especially when they do it to kids. And what's really fascinating is this: the devil's in the details. And so many people that are in the alternative media, they're into the macro, and that's a good thing. But you guys that get into the micro and where the rubber meets the road, that's where you even get into a whole nother level of this psychopathy.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks for the call, dude. We'll definitely get in contact.
Shoot me an email, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple more callers here. Let's see. I think we're on Ed. Ed in Kentucky. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Clint? Mr. Burt, how you doing?
Hi there, sir.
Don't forget Greg.
Oh, hi, Greg. How you doing? Hey, congratulations on your case, man.
I appreciate it.
Way to stick it to the man.
Thanks, sir.
I'm a disabled vet, 7th generation, and I'm not mad at you, Clint. For the other night I was listening to you when you were reading what was that? The Libra's Code.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ironically, I read it too. But would you please remember that I took an oath to defend the Republic, U.S., and the Republic Constitution that I was taught. And that's what I wanted to do. I gave up going to college. I gave up going to college at Eastern Kentucky University. So I didn't have to register for selective service. Because why? I remembered what I read. A great president once said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Hey, this man was a naval veteran, a naval officer, a disabled veteran himself. So if he can do it, I can do it.
Well, I respect that, man,
and thank you, sir, for your service. And regardless of the reason why people found themselves in some of these wars, we at least are not speaking German or Japanese. Thanks.
That's true. I mean, I told people this. I said, you better be thankful that we do what we do. And the lady said, why? I said, simple. I said, you could be eating sushi and washing it down with Russian vodka and having tea and crumpets at noon.
That's right.
I said, any other questions?
That's right.
And she just looked at me, and I just. But see, the thing is, since I've been listening to RBN. I first started out with Alex Jones, and then I found you guys. And as a veteran, and I got to find out 100 and some odd years, our country has are supposedly leaders that we chose, we put in office, that we entrusted.
Well, sir, you are our leaders. You are our leaders, not these other clowns that get voted into office. You are the leaders of this country.
Burt. On the break, can I talk to you a minute, please?
Hey, we're going to go to break. We'll be back.
Derivatives, quantitative easing, trade imbalances, recession, low GDP, nations close to collapsing, and subprime loans, foreclosed homes, and people's taxes spent to bail out too big to fail, AAA banks again. Fear levels rising as the US crash seems imminent, having smashed the debt ceiling of 14 trillion despite protests and clashes in Athens streets. The IMF imposed structurally unjust programs.
All right, folks, we're back here in the Corporation Nation. We're talking to one of what I consider the victims of that corporation and its absolutely unethical treatment of its soldiers. Ed in Kentucky, who's having some issues that hopefully Burt can help him with. I think Burt's getting anxious to actually take on some federal agencies, to be honest.
Clint, hand him a tissue. I think he's drooling too much.
Yeah, exactly. Burt wants to take on the entire corporate industry of the United States, starting with the veterans.
As a brother vet, I had to back him up. So we have to go back to back. We have to go back to back.
Well, there's no worse feeling than the concept that whatever my personal opinions are on the wars that aren't really wars, that are illegal occupations of other countries, the way that our country treats or doesn't treat their own soldiers is perhaps the greatest tell, showing their hand at how immoral they actually are. So my heart goes out to you. Did you have any other? Do you have a question for Burt or for Greg?
Gentlemen, all I want you to do is please do this. Something's going to happen in the future. And by the way, the FYI, keep your ears and eyes open. There is going to be possible some arrests made in the administration. So something is happening positive. just pray for us veterans, because we may have to literally live up to our oath again. And this time it's going to be like in the Patriot, like Mel Gibson said. The war you're going to fight is not going to be on a foreign soil or a foreign land or a foreign country. It's going to be fought right here in your front lawns, in your pastures, and our children are going to witness it and write the history.
That's
brother,
right.
Brother, we are already fighting it.
And
right
Ed,
now,
let me just say this, Ed, I'm going to continue to hold you to your oath, so the fight's still on, so keep it going.
You too, bro.
All right, brother. Take care.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right. Let's. We got two Freds on the line. Which one? Let's take Fred, California. That's where I'm from, so we'll go to California first. Fred.
Hi, Fred.
Hey, how you guys doing? Hey, I was doing Tales from the Red Zone. Hey, I won the case, and
this was
a claim against the city for all my out-of-pocket expenses, and that question is to Burt. Maybe I'll give you an email on that. What's your take on that?
You have a right, You have a right to go after attorney fees, and the way you settle attorney fees is if you yourself did not employ an attorney, then you can get paid at the same rate that the city attorney or the city representative is getting paid.
Okay, because I set mine on the parking meter violator. It gets $40 an hour, but as you know, I'm disabled and in a lot of pain, and 20 miles in a car is about all I can take. When I got to court, I had to take pain medication or I was going to pass out. So I went through hundreds of miles of having to drive and a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. So I'll give you an email. But congratulations, Greg, and also Clint, Burt, and you can't leave Daniel out of this either. You guys put on a great show. I got to admit, I am a member of Burt's website. So just everybody out there donate to RBN. It doesn't get much better than this, but I'll have to get off the phone here. I'm not doing too good, but
I'll get them for pain and suffering, too.
Okay, Burt?
Yeah, I'll wait to hear from you then.
Okay, all of you, thanks a lot for what you're doing and what you did for Greg, and I can't say enough, and the best to all of you, your family and friends. So
10-4, same to you, and thanks for keeping the fight going.
Okay,
yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Take care, guys.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
I don't even consider this a show anymore. At this point, it's more of an appeal. It's more of just a information sharing show. This isn't entertainment, folks. If you're here for entertainment, go and listen to Alex Jones yell for 3 hours. If you want real hard hitting truth, if you want to call it that, I guess, then you're here. I don't put on a show. At least I don't think I do. I'd like to think this is something more unique than that. But anyway, let's take our other Fred in Iowa. Fred in Iowa, welcome to the show.
Hi, Clint. Hi, Bert. Congratulations to Greg. I'm a frequent caller, so I presume I'm on the list.
Yeah, the blacklist.
Make it pink. Anyhow, the last two callers, my heart goes out to Ed and to Fred in California. But the question I have for Bert is, do you cover passports? But before you give me an answer, maybe that won't be necessary. I'll stick around for the fracas, and I'll take my answer off the air. Have a good day, and God bless you all.
Well, what do you mean, do you cover passports, just to be clear?
Well, I had one a long time ago, and I physically lost it, I don't know how many years ago, and I am a little concerned about putting in for another one, because I got a big mouth. So,
Well, contact me, and I'll kind of give you some pointers on how to deal with the passport application, because the passport application is actually nothing more than a trap to try to get you to step out of the national status into the District of Columbia resident status.
I got it. Thank you, Bert. I'll talk to you all another time. God bless.
All right,
and bye.
guys. Take care.
All right, Fred, thank you very much. That's it for the callers. Tell us again there, Greg. How do you feel?
I couldn't contain myself, man. I feel powerful. I feel a little more responsible, a little more aware, a little more confident. I feel a little less cynical, in fact, even about the court systems. I do realize that there are some very slimy people out there. But I have to say, I worked with a number of very professional people, regardless of their ignorance on any given subject. I have to say, I at least have to say we do have a court system that did respond to me. I did have the ability to go about doing what I did, and I was listened to. I was heard, and feels incredible.
Slime has it has a disposition where it can be walled in. You use the law to wall in the slime so that they can't be that slimy. You wear a raincoat, some rubbers, and everything's fine, right? You just have to learn how to wall in their slime. As soon as I figure out, I can't be a slime, I have to actually pay attention, or I might get disbarred or lose my license, or all these things, then all of a sudden, things change, and you experience that firsthand, and I'm kind of jealous, to be honest.
well, thanks. I think I think I know what you mean. And again, man, it's an incredible feeling. There's nothing like it. I told Bert a couple times, I think, consider this a hug, man, from quite some distance away, because really, you give me a priceless experience. This is not something I'll ever forget. This is very empowering.
Yeah, well, and we're only a third of the way there. We still have a long ways to go.
The fun part is still yet to occur.
That's right.
Well, we'll have to keep updated. I know these things take quite a period of time, and when you start going after these people, that's when you're really going to see the slime, because they protect each other. It's a very protective kind of thing, 'cause you don't want to set precedent.
Here's one thing that I want people to keep in mind, that Greg's case here, I told him, I says, Greg, don't expect this thing to be over less than 6 months. Probably it may take a year. Remember that, Greg?
Yeah, I remember.
It got resolved in less than 3.5 months.
So you lied?
I lied. I'm sorry.
You're better than you thought, man.
Well, but I'm gonna say this: the reason Greg had, was able to basically put things in the shelf like they were supposed to be is because Greg himself wanted to win this case. That's why we got to where we right,
and that's very important, because Bert, you weren't standing there for you were still 2,000-3,000 miles away. You didn't do anything except say, look, here's your paper, now you got to go in court and defend yourself, basically.
Yes, he did all the time.
Bert was the commander, and I think I consider myself a general that was just glad to be receiving some orders that were getting me somewhere.
All right, guys, thanks so much. Sounds like we're at the end of the show. Join me tomorrow for Mel Hallett, a little update on her city council experiences. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Clint.
Take care. Thank you.